I am here.
Sorry. Oh, yeah, Norm Round. Sorry about that. Yep, there it is. All right. We usually read this. We don't usually read all 3 pages of this, of the 2 pages of this order, right? The order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law at the beginning.
Want me to do it?
Well, I've got the 2 pages in front of me. Go ahead and read what you normally read. Go ahead, Jean.
I read the part that is marked red so that it makes it official for the virtual meeting. And I apologize, first of all, that the attendance wasn't listed as remote on that meeting, but okay. So virtual meeting call to order at 6:30. 6:32 p.m. I'm reading the ground rules for this meeting as it was being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12th, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth as a result of the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. Roll call was taken by Jean to identify the members present.
All right, thank you very much.
And I see Kim and Ann Mazar.
So, ladies, why don't we start with the
Jack.
meeting minutes?
Hey, folks.
Hey, Jack.
I see you, Jack.
Hi, how are you?
Can we start? Does everybody have a copy of the minutes for May 6th?
When were those sent? Which email was that?
May 6th.
Yeah, it just came out. It came through earlier this week. That's when it.
Oh.
That's when it ended up. I think it was sent on June 3rd, but
Okay. Yeah, let me pull that up. Yep, I got it.
this is the one that has Chief Kersey asking for transfer for the police department, and then it talks about the multi-board review. Unless somebody sees a mistake, do they get a motion to approve the minutes of May 6th?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
That is Norm. Okay.
That was. Yep.
All right, any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 It's unanimous. Let's go on to May 13th.
Once again, on this, I changed everybody's attendance to remote. I apologize.
Okay. So you do have it listed on the 13th as remote.
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I just didn't want to resend the minutes and confuse anybody.
Okay. With that change that this obviously was a remote meeting, and it does say virtual meeting on the notes themselves.
Yeah.
Can I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Okay, thank you. Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Abstain, Jack?
Yeah, Jack's abstaining because you weren't on the call, right?
Same
Correct.
here. So same here. I was not there.
Got it. Can I have the other minutes, please?
Are we voting?
Last set is June 3rd.
Okay, let's go to the June 3rd minutes.
Did we already vote on 16?
Yes,
Yes,
Okay.
Aye.
we had a couple that abstained and then
Yeah.
that weren't because they weren't on the call.
Okay.
And same thing for June 3rd, right?
Yes.
Everybody remote?
yep.
Nick, were you not on that call on the 3rd?
I thought I was there.
Yeah, I thought you were too.
You know, I had that you weren't, and I thought you were myself.
Well, I think he maybe
Well,
signed
my-
on right after you took attendance, you know.
Yeah, I was there. I'm just
Okay.
checking my calendar, but yeah, I was.
Yep.
I'll fix those, I'll reprint them.
Okay, so with adding
You-
everybody's
were you-
remote, including Nick.
No, I'm there. Are you there?
Yes.
You
Yep.
are. All right.
All right, can I have a motion and a second for these minutes?
Jack, so
So,
moved.
second.
Thanks. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, that's unanimous.
Okay, we're all caught up.
All right, so we're all caught up with the minutes. All right, I think what I'm just doing is sharing the articles, the spreadsheet of the articles, so that we can make motions to accept them. But obviously, the first two are out of order, and elected official salaries, which is part of the budget, which we already did at our budget hearing. So we've already, as a board, already voted to recommend Article 2 and 3. So really, the discussion right now is on a recommendation about the vote about the school override. So the amount is $271,820. Obviously, if you don't know, we had the election last week, and it did pass. I think by about Kim, was it a 200 or 300 vote margin? I don't know if Kim is on there or not.
Was.
Maybe she's
I'm here. Yes,
Yeah.
I think it was like 7-11 to 3 something. I'm sure Jay knows better than me. He's here too. But 7-11 is what I heard for the yes.
Now, Kim, I'd have to go look that up too, so I'll remind
Yeah.
you.
It was like 700 to 300
Yeah, somewhere
in the
there.
range.
Okay. Would anybody like to start the discussion about whether we're gonna recommend to approve or not? Heather, do you have some thoughts on the budget and where it's at?
Yeah, sorry, I just had to move rooms. So, yeah, I mean, I think most importantly, it was the override passed at the town election kind of overwhelmingly. As many of you know, there were a total of 28, I think 26 teachers that were let go. They were given their reduction in force because of the overwhelming deficit in the governor's budget, as well as the impending override. As you know, you have to notify the teachers that you might lay off in case the override doesn't pass, which is why Dr. Maruschek had to do that before May 29th. So I think the elimination of positions or the reduction in force was based on seniority. There were many very important positions that were cut. Right now, Mendon Upton enjoys a class size average of around 22. Given the current cuts, will be well over 30 per class. Given the CDC guidelines, as well as the State of Massachusetts Department of Secondary and Elementary Education's recommendations that came out earlier this week, or maybe it was last week, there's going to be no more than 12 kids in a class, and they have to be socially distant, which, given the cuts, seems almost impossible to accommodate. Many special
Can you just
educators.
give those numbers again, just that you just.
So currently the CDC, as well as the Mass Department of Elementary, Secondary, and Education, has made recommendations for class sizes in the fall. So, of course, there may be some aspect of remote learning or something, but right now, Department of Elementary, Secondary Education and Mass is suggesting no more than 10 students in a class, so no more than 12 total people, to maintain social distancing guidelines. The students will have to be separated and seated 6 feet apart, have to wear masks, as well as the teachers. Mendon Upton has not yet released publicly. I know they're frantically working on a plan to share with parents what the fall is going to look like. But there is, at this point, almost no way to be able to even serve 10 kids per class, given the amount of cuts that were made. I think the override is imperative. Many of the positions that were cut based on seniority included special education positions. The reading specialist at Clough was cut. The 7th and 8th grade band teacher at MISCO was cut. The chorus teacher at MISCO was cut, as well as an 8th grade science teacher and an 8th grade social studies teacher at MISCO. There were multiple cuts at the high school. Right now, if the cuts remain, the high school students will have to take a study hall as part of their day because there aren't enough electives for all of the students. Right now, athletic fees are increased to $400 per student per sport. So it's a pretty dire situation. If the override passes in Mendon, we know from proportional share that Upton has already made a provision to provide the funding out of, I'm not sure where they're getting that funding, but they had it and they're going to provide that funding provided Mendon passes at the town meeting on the 29th.
Just to fill in that blank, a few years ago, there was an override that passed in Upton and didn't pass in Mendon. My understanding is that the money from that override was put in their stabilization fund, and they're using that now to pay this override. The money.
That's correct. I was forgetting where the money was, but yes, they're taking it from stabilization. That's correct.
Yeah. Jay, do you have anything you want to add?
Did you ask me, Mike?
Yes, I did.
Oh, sorry. I was hearing the dog bark. No, Heather summed it up pretty well. We've got 2 major problems with our financing. One, obviously, is this override passing in Mendon, which is a portion of it. But the other thing that we're not going to know for a while, and the reason for the massive layoffs that were sent out, have to do with state aid being cut by anywhere from 10 to 20%. We did our budget based on a 10%, which is about $1.4 million. It could be as high as 2.8 million. There's hopes that there'll be a federal package that will backfill state revenue. The state is projecting about an $8 billion shortfall right now for next year. But as you guys, I'm sure know, these things are changing every day, including the guidelines for opening school are changing every day. What they're proposing right now really isn't workable, quite honestly. I don't know how we put like 7 kids on a bus and get them to school, which is all you can fit and keep them 6 apart. So there's a lot of problems here, but financing is one of them. So this particular piece is a critical piece, I would say, and it did pass fairly solidly at the election last week. It got more votes than I did, so I guess that's a good thing.
I know I did talk to our Congressman Jim McGovern. I think it was after our last meeting, and this latest package that they passed, which has now been languishing there for a while. In that particular package, and I don't remember the name of it. The House of Representatives earmarked money for individual cities and towns, at least in Massachusetts. And Mendon is in their legislation is slated to get $2.2 million this year and $1.1 million in FY 2021. But I mean, in its, I guess, calendar year. But you know, it still has to go through the Senate, and they're finally now saying they're going to do something. But at least on the federal level, there's something being done to backfill. You know, and it's direct, and that money is direct to Mendon. It doesn't have to be approved by the state.
So, Mike, is that separate from the HEROES Act that they've been talking about? 'Cause
No,
the
that is the HEROES Act.
HEROES Act, I was told, was an allocation that would go to the state and then be distributed out to backfill revenue to the local aid.
Well, the HEROES Act was the first one, right?
No, that's
No.
what's approved in the House and is sitting in the Senate right now.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
the CARES Act.
CARES Act is the first one, right? So the HEROES Act, at least I talked to Congressman Jim McGovern, and he indicated to me that the money was to be sent directly to the state. I mean, to the town, or earmarked to the town. But maybe, I'm sure it'll flow through the state coffers. But supposedly, the way they wrote it, there was no way that the state was supposed to monkey with those numbers. So that money was earmarked for us to go to us and only to us. But who knows what's going to happen if it gets to the Senate, or if the president will even sign it. I don't know.
Right. I mean, ultimately, what we're trying to do with the school is maintain what we currently have, which is basically to tread water, because we realize it's a really tough situation right now. And that's the purpose of this override in Mendon, the additional funding from Upton, and then hopefully the state will come through. Then we'll find that out sometime over the summer, I hope.
Okay. Well, you can see, I just changed spreadsheets. So you see currently in stabilization, we have 978,620. And we're not slated to take any money out of stabilization at this point. And my assumption is that if the town doesn't pass the override, which I'm pretty certain it will, but if they don't pass it, and there's some kind of joint meeting, we may have to take it out of stabilization anyways. So the discussion, I'm looking now for the members of the finance committee, what their thoughts are. My thought is that we should support it at this point, because I was not in favor of the original override. I mean, we never really dug into it, went into it that deep. I mean, you did, Jay, you explained it, and the superintendent did, but we never really discussed it much. I was not in favor of another operational override, but where we're at right now, I don't see what other choice we have. It's devastating, even with the override, especially with these new class sizes. I don't even know how that's going to work. But that would be my thought, that we should recommend that the town approve it at town meeting. But I'm looking for the rest of the members to have a discussion.
I'd like to make a motion that the finance committee vote favorably and recommend the override for this FY 2021 school budget.
All right. Do I have a second now?
I'd like to just kind of put a comment in before we vote. So this is Nick, and I probably feel similar to you, Mike, where I had reservations around the larger override, and I probably have still some reservations on the smaller one, but understand the reality of the situation that the schools are facing. But am concerned about coming back next year for another override. I think the voters were very clear in kind of the support for it. And I understand we're in a position where if it's not the override, it's coming out of stabilization. So I think given the choices, I am, supportive of it. But I am concerned around coming back for more again next year, which I imagine we will. But I understand the situation is where that the monies will be needed. And I quite frankly, like others have mentioned, I'm not sure exactly how we're going to handle the situation in September if things are as those described.
I'd like to echo Nick's comments that I think given the pretty dire situation that the schools are in terms of the amount of cuts that had to be made based on the anticipated governor's budget, as well as some of the, I mean, people are hurting. Not only have we had people who have been sick, but there's the unemployment is really high, and it's really difficult to ask people to continually come back and fund an override. I'm in clear support this year, although I would have significant hesitation about a large override being requested 2 years in a row.
So Nick, can I assume that was a second to the motion?
I guess a long-winded second, but yes, I just wanted to make sure that kind of, at least that it's out there, at least so that everyone understands my position on this versus just kind of voting and not commenting on it. So yes, a second.
All right, so the motion been made and second, and now we can have some more discussion. Does anybody else want to weigh in? And again, keeping in mind, this is just a recommendation. We're going to go to the floor, and the townspeople are going to make the decision. But if there's no other discussion, I guess I'd be looking for a roll call vote, just because of what this is. So,
Heather Alcock, aye.
Nick Ciantra, aye.
Norm Round, aye. Jack Hodgins, aye.
Mike Amendolier, nay.
all right, and I guess the ayes have it. So that's Article 4. I'm going to go through Articles 5, 6, and 7, which is the typical ones every year for the assessor's cyclical inspection, the update valuation account, also for the assessors, and then the $2,500 matching grant for the police department. And that, again, that's pretty much. Are we going, Jay? Have we talked about we're going to do that on a consent calendar? Can we do that again?
Yeah. Well, it's going to be live, so yes. I don't know. I haven't looked close enough yet to figure out which ones are consent calendar, but we will do that with as many as we can that are the same things we do every single year.
Okay. So
if you haven't heard, Mike, we're going to be doing the town meeting out on the field outside, so we're going to want to move quick.
did we? Is that? No, I hadn't heard that. That
Yeah.
was.
Which field is that we're
Football
doing the
field.
town meeting?
The football field
At
behind Misco Hill.
Behind Misco? Okay.
Yep.
Oh, that'll be historic.
Yeah, it'll be
Yeah.
interesting, but
What happens if it rains?
we'll get wet.
Okay.
I'm encouraging people to bring their own umbrellas. If we have a major storm, then we'll have to postpone it to like the next night or something like that. But we're going to hope for good weather right now.
Everyone brings their own chair and an umbrella?
That would be my hope. We'll probably have a rack of chairs out there. I'll see how many we can get. But the goal is everybody bring your own chair, bring an umbrella, and whatever you need to be comfortable. And we'll see if we can get through things as quickly as we can. That's the purpose of doing something next week, to kind of let people ask questions so they don't do it at the town meeting. They still will, obviously, but it hopefully will expedite things.
If you didn't see it in the email, we're going to do a kind of a town hall meeting, so people can weigh in and ask questions about the annual town meeting format, right? All right, so Articles 5, 6, and 7, $6,500 for the assessor's cyclical inspection, $17,000 for the update valuation account, and $2,500 for the police department matching grants. Can I have a motion and a second to recommend those?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Is there anybody dissenting, or can we just, anybody vote against the recommendation? So I'm going to declare it unanimous for those 3, 5, 6, and 7.
Okay, I got it.
The next money article is number 9, which I think if you see on the screen, is it still, everybody still shared on the screen? They can see the article list?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, so
Okay.
Article 9 is Chapter 90 funds. The state has indicated that we're going to receive $275,653. And I know it was I think it's a $200 million fund. I saw something the other day that it had increased to 300,000. Kim, did you see anything about that? Or was that maybe, I don't think they could be talking about
Not
next
that I
year.
recall.
What's that?
Not that I didn't see anything last week on it.
Okay, I just saw some kind of an article. If it was just a news article or maybe an email that I don't know that was sent to me or something, that it was going to go up, but that's what they're giving us, but we have to accept it, and it has to be spent, for roads, and we know we've got about an $8 million need, so this will be sorely needed. But can I have a motion to accept the Chapter 90 money, to recommend it?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, thank you. Article 9, I'm sorry, Article 10 is the CPC is transferring $20,000 from affordable housing for the to pay part of the salary for the coordinator. I guess we know that Bill McHenry wears a couple of hats. But this $20,000 is for that piece of it. So they're recommending the transfer, and they always look for FinCom recommendation. So does anybody have any questions or discussion about Article 10? If not, can I have a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Who said that?
Heather made the motion.
Yeah, but who said the second?
Second, Jack.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Kim, can you double check these numbers for 11 and 12? These are the CPA contributions for the police station debt. $30,000 for the additional payment, or it said up to $30,000, and then $133,855 for Article 12 for their portion of it. Do those numbers look right to you?
So 11 shouldn't have a number at all, right? Let me check.
Yeah, it was blank, but I put it in there because the motion said up to 30,000.
Right, but that's just to provide the ability to do so. The actual amount is in the next line for the 133,855. That's assuming 11 passes, then 12 has both numbers combined.
Okay. So do we
So
vote?
11 is not a money article.
It's the
Well,
it's the
CPC
authorization of an expenditure.
Yeah.
So yes, I'd say.
Yeah, I'd say, CPC is is recommending it. It's coming out of, the funds they have control of. So I would let's just put 11 and 12 together, because obviously if we're going to recommend the payment, we have to authorize the additional money. So 11 and 12 together.
All right.
I'm sorry. Yeah, 11 and 12. So I'll be looking for a a motion and a second?
So moved.
Jack, second.
Any discussion, any questions? Then all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right. Article 13 is for the Pheno property debt. It's $95,400. Can I have a motion and a second for that?
So moved.
Second, Jack.
Nick and Jack. Any discussion at all? This is, how many years do we have left on this?
Off the top of my head, I'm not quite sure. I have to bring up the debt schedule.
We've got to be halfway through anyways, right?
Yeah, I mean, if I had to take a swag, I'd say it's 6.
Mhm.
But I'd need to pull up files
Yep.
that I,
And
yeah.
again, it's
Are you
still-
talking about Pheno?
Yeah.
yeah.
There's only like 1 or 2 years left.
But
Oh,
when
that's-
we consolidated the loans, but that's all right.
Well, for the CPC payment, yeah, it is that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ann. So again, I need a motion in a second.
Didn't we already make the motion
did
in
that.
second?
Nick and Jack did.
Yeah.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That's unanimous. Thank you.
You got it.
Okay. I'm just trying to move this over. For 14, the Water Department Enterprise Fund budget. These are the numbers that I have, we talked about last time. I'm not sure if we have to, I guess we'd have to make a recommendation because again, it is money. It is a money article. So this
Don't
is,
worry, Mike, I'll forget to ask you about it anyway.
yeah, I know. But at least I'll have it documented someplace. So I'll be able to be truthful about it when I say we recommend it or not. Can I have again, these monies, this is all monies paid for by the ratepayers, except for a small amount that's for the public water supply. Kim, is that in this enterprise budget, or is this all strictly the ratepayer side? Do you know?
What is your question exactly?
Okay. Well, for Article 14, it's the Water Enterprise Fund budget.
Right.
And my question is, does the Water Enterprise Fund budget include, I don't remember if there's a section, still a separate section in the actual budget.
Yes,
Water
there are still costs in the regular operating budget for the town, but it is very small.
Right.
If I pulled it up quickly, I could tell you. We proportion the public functions of it and the share of that cost in the operating budget, and then the rest was moved into the water revolving fund. So the share that's left is $23,000, 23 and change in the operating budget for 21, where the budget before was about 155,000.
Okay. So this budget for this year, you're figuring expenses 151,452, all paid by the ratepayers, and after direct and indirect expenses, it'll lead about an $8,800 surplus. Can I have a motion and a second to recommend this Water Enterprise Fund budget?
Mike, I had
So
a
moved.
question. I had a question on the surplus. Is there a limit to that surplus? How much, what happens with that?
I believe it just stays in the fund. I don't, maybe,
Mike, I'm on the call if you want.
yeah, sure, explain it. Answer his question.
This is Dan Byer here. So the way that, I believe the way that works is that money remains in the so-called enterprise fund, but I believe it has to be appropriated before it can be spent. So the water would have to come back to town meeting and say that money was needed for something. The intent of that money is to start setting aside funds because most of our pipes are like 70 years old and they're reaching the end of their lifespan, and we've got to be prepared to deal with that.
Well, is it, when I look at this, when I look at the, the estimated revenues, I see the water charges, which obviously is self-explanatory. Capital impact, I believe, is money that goes to Hopedale, and then the local capital impact is money that that we're charging to put in our own for what you just talked about.
Right,
So
and that's why local
Right.
capital impact and the surplus are almost the same.
That's exactly what I'm getting at. So in other words, the target, so to speak, 7,600. It's actually a surplus of actually 8,800. So it's in the ballpark. But that's my memory. My memory, Norm, is that's what that number is. I mean, it's supposed to be, what goes in goes out. But so the surplus is basically for local capital impact.
Right, but there's already a line item of 7,500. So I'm just curious on a budget why you would budget for a surplus when it's not earmarked for anything.
I don't know if it's. I don't know. I don't know if they're just putting it in there. I don't think it's a budgeted surplus. I see it's in italics, but I guess I don't know for sure. But obviously,
Mike,
because we have to appropriate it or approve it at town meeting, that's the only time they can spend it.
I believe if we're going to appropriate it, it's to be spent on other things besides the water company. If it's in that fund, the water company controls that money for the water or anything that has water. If we want to take that money out and backfill a shortage somewhere, we got to bring it to a town vote.
Right.
But the whole intent is to, as Dan was saying, to build that up as a fund for future unforeseen expenses, or give it back to the ratepayers.
Right, but like the local capital impact is already budgeted. So, I mean, a budget in my experience should zero out to no surplus or no deficit.
I guess we kind of built this on the template that we were given from the accountants. I don't think that surplus is necessarily, I think it's really just there for transparency so people can see that our budget is built not at a loss, but at essentially at a profit.
Okay, so if there's a surplus at the end of the year of say $8,000, where does that money sit, I guess? Does that go into the local capital impact account?
Yeah, it would stay stay in the fund. But if you look at the numbers, right, total estimated revenue is 166,908. Total direct and indirect expenses is about 158. So that's where
I have never developed a budget that you had a surplus. You budget it. It says it's an estimate. It's just odd.
If you look, there's a line for retained earnings, and that would be where we could draw from that surplus. So like essentially in November, there's going to be a separate free cash certification for the money just in the enterprise fund. And then that's kind of our own separate balance, which we would then have to appropriate into our budget somehow to spend. Otherwise, it just sits there.
I guess what I'm saying is that where it says estimated revenue at the top, and one of them is local capital impact, maybe instead of it saying surplus deficit, that should be labeled, actual capital impact amount. Does that make sense?
That might, yeah, I can pass that back to the commissioners, and maybe that's a better way of putting it.
Would that make sense to you, Norm?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I'm just curious if there is a surplus like that.
Well, it's a
Where
good
would-
question.
I mean, it sounds like if there was a surplus, it would go into the local capital impact, or would it go back to the ratepayers? Yeah, that's fine. Not a biggie.
Yeah, but a good question. But that's my understanding, is that local capital impact estimate and that surplus number at the bottom is that's where it comes from. But, all right, so did we have I'm sorry, do we have a motion in a second, or are we just discussing this first?
So
I guess-
moved.
All right, I need a motion. I need a second.
Second,
All right. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, that's unanimous. Thank you. I believe these are the correct numbers for the revolving fund limits. Kim, can you verify for me these are the right numbers?
I can, with the exception, I believe Dan still needs a vote on parks.
Okay. Is that a vote you need from us, Dan? Is that the number you wanted, 150? Is that the number you're?
No, so they're two separate things. This is the number we want. This is for FY21. We also need a separate vote to fix FY20 because of increased spending. Our current cap is 125 and we need to raise it because of all the COVID stuff.
Okay. So that's in the current year's budget. Is that right? Dan?
Yes, that would be this current fiscal year.
So last year we set it at 125, and you're saying because of COVID expenses, it's actually going to be 150 that you're going to need.
Yeah.
And who has to do that vote? I don't think it's just us. It must be us and the Board of Selectmen, right?
Yeah, it works just like the snow and ice thing. It has to be both boards voting.
Okay. Well, but that is the number for FY21, right? 150?
150.
All right, so we'll come back to that.
Also, Mike,
Yes, sir.
something changed. I don't think that Board of Health revolving account exists. I think this is a typo from when we tried to do it a few years back.
That's what I was asking because I pulled this out of another document. So Kim, is that correct? That Board of Health doesn't have a revolving?
Right, that
account?
didn't pass. Remember, we pulled those off. So I'm just looking at the limits of the numbers. Those haven't changed, but health.
Yeah, I just took it out. Or I took it out of the what was that, like the trash one or something?
Yep, is that one's Title V above it?
Right.
Okay.
I'm just trying to make it fit. Much rather do it now than. All right, so library 6,000, planning board 30,000, highway 25,000, conservation commission 25,000, board of health title 5 25,000, parks 150,000, and then fire department 10,000. Now, do we even need to vote on this? I know it says board of selectmen above it, but it has us in there.
expenditure limits on revolving accounts. Establishing a revolving account, I believe, is the Board of Selectmen, but the limits are still expenditures.
Okay. All right. So I'd be looking for a motion in a second then.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second. Jack.
Thanks, Jack. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, so that's Article 15. Article 16, I think, is the planning board. Article 17 is the planning board. Article 18 are drainage improvements. And we talked about this last time. I know it's another CPC article, but the concern we had was, we needed to have engineering costs or engineering taken care of first before we actually talked about actually spending to do the improvements. And I think, Dan Byer, you sent me an email that this was for engineering. Is that right?
Yeah, there was a bit of a miscommunication. I think what Ann had was the original plan, but right now we're just getting the 10,000 to just do an engineering study, and then we'll come back for the remainder of the project once we figure out exactly what needs to get done.
Okay. So this is $10,000 CPC money to do an engineering plan for these drainage issues at the beach. Can I have a motion in a second?
So moved.
Second.
All right. All those.
Just out of curiosity, if this were, once we get the study back and whatever the cost ends up being, where would the cost for the actual work be pulled from or requested from?
So this is Dan here again. The plan for parks, we probably look at splitting some of that. So parks would probably be able to self-fund some, and we might come back to CPA for some of that. There's drainage. We need to do something with the playground. So it's kind of a multi-phase project. I think we looked to split it up.
But again, it's part of the parks, the revolving fund, right?
Yeah, so we would, that's part of our goal with that fund, is to take the profits from our programming and dump them right back into the facilities that run those programming.
Okay. All right, I'm just going to try to, there's a group of these all together. If you look at them, there's 18 which are drainage improvements. 19 is $1,200 for record room gutters. And is this only cook transfer, the 20 and 21? Is that money going back in that wasn't expended? Is that correct?
Correct.
So 20 and 21, 20 and 21 is putting money back in. 22 is for pollinator meadow. And then Article 23 is for the affordable housing well that we had discussed. We've discussed this a couple of times. So I'd like to get a motion to recommend 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, and 23. We'll do a motion in a second. If anybody has any specific questions, we'll talk about those before we actually take the vote. So can I have a motion in a second?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Who said that? Jeff?
Norm.
No.
Norm.
So who moved?
Nick, I think, Nick, you made the motion, right?
Correct.
Okay, I got it. Nick and Norm.
Right, Nick and Norm. It could be like a talk show, I think. Nick and Norm.
We're gonna take it on the road. Yep.
That's it. I think we are. I don't know. All right. Any questions or discussion about any of these articles? I know we talked about them last time and Ann went through them.
Article 22, what's the number?
10,000.
10,000.
I'm sorry,
Is
you
it-
broke up.
is
No,
it- is it 10 or 20?
20,000. It's
This one is
20,000.
20, right? Yeah, let me fix that because we did that last time.
This is the new one right here. Oh, we had it at 10,000.
So what is it? 20,000, and what's that for?
It's for putting in a pollinator meadow with native plants on the open space property that runs along Route 16. But it wouldn't be the part that's being hayed. It's on the lower field that you can sort of see through the trees. And so this would be for like cutting a path to it, removing invasives, possibly putting like a boardwalk in, a path, educational materials, because we want to have it be an educational site for like students and the general public. And it would be like, this is over many years. And there'd be a lot of volunteers that would be putting time in and who are interested.
So we're not trying to get rid of weeds out of the pond. We're actually trying to get this area to grow for the bees.
Yeah, with native plants, and
Right.
there's not really a pond there. It's
Oh.
has some, it's wet in parts, but
Yeah, I was just trying to make a joke about the,
mhm.
and this sounds like a better thing because we don't have to eradicate anything. We're actually getting it to grow. And we're pretty good at getting things to grow here, right?
Yeah, we do have to get rid of a lot of like multiflora rose, bittersweet, and to let the natives have some space.
Yeah, I'd love to find a way to eradicate all the bittersweet because it seems to invade every plant around my the edges of my property.
Hmm.
But all right, any other questions?
Is that a one-time, is this gonna be every year, or is it a one-time hit?
This is like a one-time hit at this point. I mean, a couple years later, if there's a lot of enthusiasm and there's, more work to be done, then yeah, we would be back. But it's really a huge volunteer effort mostly. And this money is mostly for removing the invasives and buying native plants.
Any other questions? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Or abstained? Then I guess it's unanimous. All right, Article 24, we passed over the pumper truck. And Article 25 is the $50,000 for the town hall well. And Kim, was this coming out of capital expenditure?
Yes.
I just want to fix it on the, yeah, okay, yeah, CapEx. All right, can I have a motion and a second for this article? Then we can discuss it.
So moved.
Second. Any update on this? Last we talked that they were gonna look at it and determine if they could do it. And did I miss something on this?
That's not gonna, we won't have more information until we get the funding to have them go out. But any money that we don't expend that's from CapEx, we will put back into CapEx.
So you want to just change the transfer up to 50,000?
We won't have the number in time. That's the issue. So in between when we figure out what the actual problem is and what they need, that's going to be hopefully over the next couple of months. And the next time we'd have available in order to get additional funding wouldn't be till the end of November.
Right, so that's why we just vote up to 50,000. Right?
But okay. Accounting wise, they're still gonna transfer it over.
They're still gonna transfer it out into
Yes.
a different account.
Yes.
Okay.
And then we'll just have to move it back.
No, they have to, right, they'd have to, right.
Right, because we can't expend it on anything else once it's approved in this way at town meeting. When it's specific to something like this, it can only be used for this. And then the only way it can come out of there when it's not used is by transferring it back.
Hey, Mike, can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Two of them, actually. First, shouldn't this motion say where it's being transferred to?
Well, it says fund replacement of the town well.
It
Yeah,
says-
you gotta
Yeah,
pay it
we
out
have
of
to,
some
we
account.
have to fix we have to go through the proof the language in all of these, and I would assume it would go to town hall maintenance.
Anyway, and then second question is, does this require any kind of recommendation from the capital planning committee? Because this has never come to us.
If it
I
comes
don't know
out
if
of
it does.
CapEx,
It doesn't matter to me. I'm just
if
asking.
it comes out of CapEx, I think it has to, right?
Well,
Right,
if
Jane?
it turns out to be more than $25,000, sure. But I don't think we're gonna know that until we get there. I mean, we need to have it, we could fund it out of stabilization, but that would take a 2/3 vote. I don't anticipate having any excess funds in building maintenance or anything to potentially cover these costs, especially in the beginning of the next fiscal year, since really that's in 2 weeks. So it's not ideal, but
Well,
we
the
won't
purpose
know
of my
until they get there.
question is, do we need to schedule a meeting of the capital planning committee to actually vote to recommend this before a town meeting? Because we have nothing on the docket right now, and we've never talked about this. We can do it. I don't think it's a problem. I'm just asking. If you don't need it, then fine, go for it.
I think it depends on how much it's gonna be. That's in what the actual fix is.
Well, I'm more concerned about the process. And I think, we have a capital planning committee that has to make approvals for expenditures out of CapEx. Isn't that what
Yeah,
our?
ideally, yes, that would be excellent.
Right.
Yes.
So at this point, I'd be looking for the FinCom to, because we're in a meeting now, to recommend it. Pending approval by CapEx. And then Jay, if you can schedule a meeting, because are you the chairman of that still?
Yeah, right now I am, yes.
Right. So if you can schedule that and then take a vote, then
Yep.
we'd have it all buttoned up for the town meeting. So right now I'm still looking for a motion and a second for the FinCom to approve the expenditure of the 50,000 to fix the town well.
So moved.
Second,
Motion made and second, and all those in favor?
Aye.
aye,
Aye. Okay, it's unanimous.
And to
So-
answer the first part of that question, Jay, it's a special article, so it'll go into its own line. It's not going in the operating budget.
Yeah, I'm just thinking clarification wise. I can hear the
Yeah.
question at the town meeting from somebody.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's great. Well, you know what? That's one of the reasons I tried to have these, because we usually don't do this. But I wanted to put them up here so people could see them, because that's great, because now we'll make sure we get the language right. So that, I'll write the discussions and then we'll make sure that that's handled. The language is correct. So that's it for the ATM warrant. Jay, when is the town hall meeting?
I think what I saw from Kim today is we're talking about doing that next Thursday, which would be the 23rd. From like
Okay.
6 to 7, and I think the game plan would be to just go through the warrant and briefly ask if anybody has any questions or needs clarification on anything that's being presented. I don't particularly want to go through the whole budget or anything like that.
Right.
But we can certainly share the screen, put it up, and maybe even post it on the website if it hasn't already been. I haven't looked, but if we can get some of this information out there, the purpose is just to try and answer questions there so that we don't have to stand out in the thunderstorms and answer questions there.
Okay,
Do I need to post that, Mike?
post.
Or, I mean, for the FinCom to attend that remotely?
I don't know if it's, we're not going to be taking a vote, and I think it's just for information purposes.
Okay,
So I think it would be great for everybody to go on. I'll go on and definitely answer any questions that come up that need to be answered, but I don't think we need to post for it.
okay.
I think the next time we actually need to post now is actually for the annual town meeting.
How do you want me to post the location?
I guess you just posted it, Misco Middle School.
Yeah, the warrant just says the meeting's at Misco Hill Middle School, so it doesn't say where in the school
Okay,
or out of the school.
all right. They'll see when they get there then.
Yeah, I hope so.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Anybody have anything else? All right, then I'm gonna look for a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a good night.
Well,
Good night.
night.
Good night.